Hi, welcome to today's webinar. This is Marcus with AGL Lifestyles, and I'm going to be talking today about, do white girls like Asian guys? And in particular, I'm going to be talking about the subject of race when it comes to talking to girls, especially from a guy's perspective. So let me tell you a bit about where I came from in my background and my personal story. I was really shy. I was quite nerdy. And I had a difficult time, not just with girls, but with social interaction in general. I got really nervous. I was always afraid of saying the wrong thing. And I always micromanaged what other people thought of me before I even said anything, which would paralyze me and would disallow me from taking action towards what I wanted to do. So fast forward to about college. I did start breaking out of my shell a bit from high school to college. Throughout high school, very little social interactions with people. I did have a girlfriend near the end of high school, which allowed me to break out of my shell a bit. And when I hit college, I went to a Mormon school as well, which means that sexual repression was quite present. And in spite of this, I was still thinking in the back of my mind that girls didn't like me because I was Asian. That was my underlying belief. And I later realized that these underlying beliefs come from past emotionally traumatic experiences, but it's not the actual fact that the belief follows naturally from what happened. What happens basically entrenches itself as some sort of emotional trauma. And then subsequently, you backwards rationalize that trauma and you start to come up with an explanation for it. So, girls didn't really like me that much, but it wasn't just because I was Asian or because I was short. It was just because I didn't talk to them that much. I wasn't fun or charismatic, or I didn't really add very much social value in that respect. So there was no reason for girls to like me that much in the first place. Where throughout college, I didn't go on any dates or anything like that. I went on a study abroad when I was 21. I went to Europe, and we traveled Europe for about a month. And I was with a natural roommate, who's really naturally good with girls and just socially intelligent and socially savvy, and an intelligent person altogether. He would take me out, and he would talk to a lot of girls and try to throw girls my way. Really stuck. Nothing worked. And that's when I started to lose a bit of hope. And I came back to America after that study abroad. I went on YouTube and I searched, do white girls like Asian guys? Or why don't white girls like Asian guys? And what ended up coming up was, a series of videos first talking about how sometimes white girls do prefer Asian guys for these reasons, or reasons why white girls don't like Asian guys. But the one that really stuck with me was this video that I saw in a lecture hall, and this guy was talking about attraction and the way attraction worked. And he was mostly talking about how women respond to emotional and social savvy over just physical attraction. Attraction, yeah, it's important to an extent, but when it comes down to it, if you're the kind of man to be able to handle yourself and compose yourself in a certain way, and to be able to behave in certain situations when it comes to adversity and handle them well, then that's going to be a guy that a girl is going to want to spend time with, especially if he's able to have fun and let loose. That's something that a lot of guys are missing. They don't realize that emotion is the currency of humanity. Emotion and fun is what drives social connection between human beings. It's not just being about the alpha guy who's in there with huge muscles and grabbing girls and bringing them closer to him and just immediately making out with them. It's about being socially intelligent, being able to talk to girls on a different level where it shows and reflects that you understand the world she's coming from, and you're empathetic to her feelings, and you're willing to connect with her on that level where it's non-judgmental. That's really the biggest thing. A lot of times people tend to be immediately judgmental when they enter into a new social interaction, especially with a stranger. And to puff up their chests a bit, they try to brag, and girls tend to be more reclusive when you first meet them, just because they are essentially showered with attention from guys on a daily basis, especially if you're an attractive girl living in LA or New York. To it, it's not just about physical attraction, it's just about the way you handle yourself. Until I was about 21. And I remember I went down the rabbit hole of reading different books and theories and watching videos about certain works and the way you can essentially gain experience through more social interactions. And I did this for a good 3 years. I came out to Vegas, and Vegas is a hub of nightlife where there's social interactions and connections happening on a daily and nightly basis. And you can literally go to a nightclub on any given night and immediately start talking to people and get to know the dispositions behind the people that are coming from all over the world. So one week you might have a heavy German demographic and you get to know the way German people think. Maybe the next week you'll have a high density of Swedish people come into town, and then you'll get to know how they think as well. It's just a matter of being able to comport yourself to the appropriate demographic. So when I realized this, I took as much action as I could and just collected these experiences. And what ended up happening was that I began to realize that it had very little to do with my Asianness, because I had certain physical experiences, certain physical evidence where girls would say I'm hot, whereas a few years ago that would have never happened, and it was just because of the way I carried myself in accordance with who I was, how congruent or similar my personality or my behavior was to the person that I am on the inside. And that's a difficult thing to understand and to really grasp. There's certain moments where you'll feel it, but it's not really something that you can strictly intellectualize. It's something that you have to experience on your own. So that's essentially the journey that I came from. I went to Vegas, explicitly just pretty much wanted to go for one night stands and really get that down. And I was in this chase for sex just to try to keep up with everyone else because I felt like I was so far behind. I was a virgin until I was 23. And basically, it was difficult for me to come to terms with the fact that it's okay if you get started later than everyone else. It's really about where you are now, and it's about where you want to be. And guys lose sight of this all the time, and they begin to conflate other people's goals and paradigms of like pickup paradigms and paradigms of communities to be their own dogmas. And I think this is pernicious because you begin to think less for yourself, and you begin to think about, how do I cater to this sort of mentality, this mentality that people other than you have set for a group of people. And they say basically, you should follow these things. This is an objective standard of how the world works, and you should just inculcate these things into your life. And this is who you should be. But I think that when it comes down to it, you have to be able to draw this from within yourself. And I know this sounds a little bit spiritual and ambiguous, but just bear with me for a second, because what I've seen in my life is that, yeah, I did start very technically. I tried to learn lines and try to learn models and systems and patterns for delineating social interactions to the point where I could just push buttons. I would push buttons and I could statistically increase my probability that I was going to get laid on a certain night. At the end of the day, what ends up happening is that you miss opportunities, and those are the ones where you're like, maybe I just should have broken the rules that one time. Maybe I should have just, instead of cutting a girl off hard, just because someone else tells you to do that and you really felt like connecting with her, maybe it's time to just try to be vulnerable, you know, put the rest of that other shit on hold and then get in touch with a deeper side of yourself. It's all about listening to what resonates with you at a given time, understanding what is drawing from within, understanding, who your core being is. And the only way you can really understand this is, first of all, to delve deep into who you were in the past, to think about what you are in terms of your subconscious thoughts, recognize these patterns, and you can restructure them at your will. You can have, essentially, what I say is that your soul guides you to a certain outcome, your mind anchors it, and your body leads you towards it. So think about that for a second. Spiritually, that's where you're connected with your outcome. Your mind is the one that decides, okay, I'm going to anchor myself to this goal. I'm just going to persist until it happens. And your body just follows through on that. So that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. It comes down to being able to connect with yourself. So what is the lesson that I'm teaching here? Well, basically, I have a structure for exploring your own emotions, for you know, exploring where you come from and how to create who you want to become. It's more than just about trying to increase your leg count or try to hook up with as many girls as possible, or even just to try to get more dates or just to try to get a girlfriend. It's more than that. It's more about this self-inspired journey where you're allowing yourself to connect with people on a deeper level. You're allowing them to join you on your journey as you ascend to your higher purpose. So what is this system? Now, we've talked a lot about philosophical stuff up to this point. Here's some more concrete ideas that you can wrap your head around to start getting some leeway into understanding what I'm talking about. So for one, what I usually do is I visualize. I visualize what I want to happen and what outcome I want to attain. Now, this is obviously not enough. You have to take action on this. You have to calibrate your visualizations to physical reality. If that doesn't happen, then nothing will happen in the real world. It'll all stay in your mind, and that becomes neurosis. You don't want to become neurotic over your dreams. You do want to have dreams, but like what Gary Vee says, you want to spend time in the clouds and in the dirt. So have that big aspiration, have that outcome in mind, and have that idea that you visualize on a daily basis, but also take action on those things. So for example, if I'm thinking about, I really want to have a girlfriend, I visualize my girlfriend, I visualize how we interact when we go out, I visualize what it would be like to be able to call her on Friday night and go out to dinner. And I start taking the first step towards that. Maybe it's making a Tinder profile. Maybe it's talking to that girl at the grocery store who you think is cute. Maybe it's starting to just become more social on the street with people. Those are all steps towards your destination. Allow your gut to guide you towards the next step and let your mind anchor it. So, for example, if I set my outcome to be get a girlfriend, then if I'm walking down the street and I see a cute girl, my soul is going to tell me I'm supposed to talk to her. But your mind, you have to be able to anchor your mind toward that intention. If it's not anchored, it's going to go awry. And essentially, it's going to disallow you from actually having intentionality behind that approach. So what I mean by that is, you're going to have these thoughts that run counter to the idea of you approaching. It's going to, that when that anxiety emotion hits, your mind is going to start backwards rationalizing to justify that anxiety. That's the thing that you have to realize. That's the real struggle, is your emotions. It's not about restructuring your thoughts. It's about getting to the underlying emotions because the thoughts follow from the emotions. So understand that. Once you get your emotions aligned, once you get them in place, once you're able to release from certain emotions that have been holding you back, and you reassociate them with positive feedback and positive emotions when you're talking to a girl, and being able to just connect with someone on a deeper level when you're talking to them, then that's when the real work happens. So the second step is taking action. And the third step is when you do feel that anxiety, get to know it. Really fucking get to know it. Write it down, journal about it. Write down how you feel, write down why you felt that way. Write down past experiences when you felt that way. When in your childhood did you feel that same emotion? Trace it back to the very first time you felt that emotion. And then you get a deeper understanding of what that emotion actually is. What is it based in? Once you wrap your understanding around that, it's not just mental understanding, it's holistic emotional understanding. It's holistic, spiritual understanding. It's being able to understand these things on a deep level from multiple angles. So when it comes down to it, your emotions are the ones that drive your behavior. So you can do visualization, you can have mantras for yourself. These things all assist your subconscious to see a different path. That's the thing. You want to refamiliarize yourself with certain paths. If your mind is closed off to a path, you're not going to take it. It's that simple. You might as well open up your mind to paths that are conducive or productive towards your ideal life. That's what it comes down to, towards your outcome. You have that outcome constantly in mind, you're going to see different paths that weren't available to you before. Take those fucking paths. That's the action part. Remember, it's soul, then mind, then body. Once you have that soul anchored towards something, that intention, then just fucking take action on it. Don't fight it, just let it happen. Just make it happen. So that's a taste of the process that I go through. And you can check out AGL Live as well. That's a podcast that I do. And those are actual coaching sessions where I delve into a student's issues and sticking points. And you get to see his actual progress. And I work a lot on emotion, a lot on what his underlying beliefs are. And that's only changed through the way he feels. And if you listen to the podcast, you're going to see that it's much more different from other approaches. And it might seem a little bit hokey or a little bit too ambiguous for you, but you will see at the end of the day that it actually fucking gets results. In fact, it gets as good or better results than any other thing that I've done in a more natural way. It's because you learn how to actually enjoy the process of interacting with another person. And that's when it comes down to. It's not about this power struggle of how do I get power and control over women and how do I push their buttons so I can have sex. It's not about that. It's more about how do you connect with someone? How do you connect with the female energy? Because once you're able to do that, then you can just go off on an adventure together. And when that happens, all you got to do is have a good time. And I know this seems like it's easier said than done, and it is and it isn't. It's more difficult in the sense that you face emotional resistance to just going for it. Honestly, I started visualizing pulling from nightclubs, taking girls home, and I remember a month after that, I was doing it within 5 minutes of meeting the girl. And it's not even, I don't say this to brag or anything. It's just, I want to exemplify the power of your mindset, the power of restructuring your subconscious to allow it to work for you. Because if you're able to do this, then you can really attain anything in life. You can visualize it, and then you can start talking about it. It starts to become more real. Then you can make it happen. It's that simple. Any fucking goal. So, what I want to offer to you today is basically my 8-week program. So, no bullshit, it's fucking hard. It's not that I inundate you with work, it's that it's emotionally challenging. It's difficult. You have to be of a certain kind of person. You have to be made of a certain kind of material to be able to go through this program. So it's not for everyone. What I've tailored this program for is people who resonate with my background. Someone who is intellectual and shy, someone who is nerdy, someone who enjoys, thoughts in academia, and I value education and I value intellect. But a lot of times that gets in our way. As an intelligent person, or not even intelligent, but as a person who's curious about the world or is constantly thinking about things in their head, that can get in the way of taking action when it comes to talking to girls. And that's what you need in order to get a girlfriend. And so I aspire for that. The goal of my 8-week coaching program is to get you a girlfriend. It's that simple. And I've been able to do this. I've been working with students for the past couple of years, and I've refined a system so that their progress is accelerated. And I also put you in a group chat with coaches that I've handpicked who really do fucking well in relationships and in dating, but also kill it in business, in health, and everything else in life. They really have their thoughts in alignment, and they also have ambitious goals. Most likely, you don't even realize this, but the people that you surround yourself with are not that ambitious. You might think that they are. Maybe you work for a software engineering firm or something like that. But even when you talk to them, they're just happy to be a software engineer. They don't really want to advance. They're happy being an employee. You could really be so much more than that. You could really become anything you want to become. Because at the end of the day, the only thing holding you back is social pressure and pressure from within yourself about what your image will be. Regardless of whether it's about whether you're thinking about your image towards other people, or whether you're thinking about your image towards yourself. Regardless of any of those factors, judgment is the enemy. Then again, sometimes judgment and discernment, when used wisely, is important. But when it comes to judgment out of temperance, that's when things start to become emotionally difficult for you. Because as soon as you start judging someone else, you begin to think that they're judging you because they think you start to think that their reality is similar to your reality. So this defensiveness in society that we see between people, people randomly fighting, things like that, that comes from this frame of judgment. What does he think of me? Who the fuck is that guy? You want to pick a fight with him just because you think he's up to something. You think that he thinks something of you and you want to prove yourself. When you release from the judgment, you're able to live a freer flowing life, and you're able to connect with someone on just more easily. It facilitates that process. And so if you're interested in the coaching program, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a link, and just reply to the email. Reply back to the email. We'll set up a call and we'll talk about what I'm about. I'll get to know you, and that's really what I want to do, is understand where you're coming from. What is your life story? What have you done in the past? What has your experience been like with women and dating and relationships? And start to unpack where the source of your resistance is coming from. And so if you want to embark on the 8-week journey, I have 10 spots, and I'd love to have you on. That being said, you really have to be the right fit for the program. But if you do meet the criteria I'm looking for, which is I need someone who's a good listener, I need someone who's humble, who's patient, and is willing to be open-minded. What I'm not looking for are people who are overly skeptical to the point where it drives them to inaction, people who are overly judgmental, and people who are self-victimizing. I have zero patience for that, and I won't work with you if you have any of those preceding three traits. But if this sounds like the kind of fit for you, where I envision you as becoming essentially becoming your, I hate to use a cliche, best version of yourself, but whatever you imagine yourself to be, that's what you can become. So think about what you want your dating life to be. What kind of relationships do you want? And I'll help you create that with you. One step at a time, we're going to unpack it together, along with the people that I've handpicked, because they've gone through that process too, and they resonate with this philosophy as well. So thank you so much for joining the webinar. I'd like to do Q&A if there's anyone here, if there's anyone left hanging around. Otherwise, if there are no questions or comments, then I'll coordinate via email. I'll send you an email, and if you're interested in talking, then go ahead and reply back. All right, until next time.